Why is the American dream dying for Gen Z? When I was growing up, I was told a story one most Americans know well. If you work hard, go to college, stay out of trouble, and never give up, the American dream will be yours. But for me, and for many in my generation, that story has started to unravel. The rules changed, the costs went up, and the reward. It feels like it's slipping further out of reach, no matter how hard we try. If you're Gen Z, or someone who cares about us, you've probably felt it too. So today I want to unpack this feeling. Why does it seem like the American dream is dying, especially for Gen Z? And what does that mean for our future? Section 1. The economic reality check. Let's begin with the basics: money, security, and opportunity. The American dream has always had a financial foundation. Buy a home, build wealth, retire comfortably. But for Gen Z, these goals feel more like fantasies. According to Pew Research, Gen Z adults have less wealth and fewer assets than millennials, Gen X, or boomers had at the same age. In fact, adjusted for inflation, real wages for young people have remained mostly flat since the 1972, even as the cost of education, healthcare, and housing has skyrocketed. Take student loans, for example. The average borrower now graduates with over $37 zero-inch debt. And for many, the degree they paid so much for no longer guarantees stable employment or a livable wage. Then there's the housing market. Home prices in major cities have more than doubled since the early 2000s, while entry-level wages have barely budged. A recent Redfin analysis showed that in 2024, only 16% of homes in the U.S. were affordable to the typical first-time buyer, down from 50% in 2016. So when we say Gen Z can't afford the American dream, we're not exaggerating. We're telling the truth. Section 2. The weight of comparison and the culture of hustle. But it's not just about what we can afford, it's also about how we feel. We live in a time of visibility overload. Social media isn't just a tool, it's an environment. Every scroll invites comparison. Every feed shows us someone younger, richer, prettier, more successful, and it's exhausting. Even when we succeed, it often doesn't feel like enough, because someone else is doing more, faster, louder, and that invisible scoreboard never turns off. The result: anxiety, burnout, and a generation that's tired before it even hits its peak. According to the American Psychological Association's 2023 report, Gen Z is the most anxious generation in history. More than 70% of Gen Z adults say their mental health is a significant source of stress. And we can't talk about this without mentioning the hustle culture. We've been told to turn our passions into side hustles, our hobbies into content, our identities into brands. But somewhere along the way, we forgot how to rest, how to breathe, how to simply exist without performing. We're constantly producing, but rarely pausing. And maybe that's why the dream feels broken. Because we were sold a version of success that requires us to sacrifice ourselves. Section 3. Inheriting a planet in crisis. Now let's talk about the planet, because no dream exists in a vacuum. Climate change isn't a distant worry for Gen Z. It's a lived reality. We've grown up in an age of wildfires, floods, hurricanes, air quality alerts, and existential dread. A landmark 2021 study in the Lancet Planetary Health surveyed over 100,000 youth across 10 countries. 59% of respondents said they were extremely worried about climate change. 45% said it negatively affected their daily lives. Over half said they feel humanity is doomed. How do you plan for a future that may not exist? How do you build a stable life, a house, a family? A 30-year plan when the world around you feels like it's falling apart. The traditional American dream was built on expansion, consumption, and ownership. But Gen Z grew up seeing the consequences of that dream: rising seas, mass extinction, poisoned air, and political paralysis. We don't want to repeat those mistakes. But we also don't know what alternatives are realistic. It's not apathy, it's overwhelm. Section 4. Ampere dream deferred, or a dream reimagined. So, is the American dream really dead, or is it just evolving? What if Gen Z isn't rejecting the dream but rewriting it? Instead of chasing wealth for wealth's sake, many of us are asking, what does a meaningful life look like? What kind of world do we want to live in? A 2023 Gallup survey showed that younger Americans prioritize flexibility, purpose, and mental health over salary and status. We're not obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder, we'd rather build something that matters. More Gen Zers are freelancing, co-living, joining collectives, and launching social impact ventures. We're redefining success as sustainability, not supremacy. We want time to rest, space to heal, communities to belong to, and maybe, just maybe, that's a better dream. The American dream as it was handed down may no longer fit. But that doesn't mean we've stopped dreaming. We're imagining a new way forward, one that's less about owning and more about belonging, less about competition and more about compassion. So I want to hear from you. What does your version of success look like? Drop a comment below. Let's start a real conversation.